Have you ever noticed how familiar the struggle of parenting can feel? So familiar, actually, that many of us end up believing parenting is mostly hard, frustrating, and overwhelming. And yes, parenting is a rite of passage. It's a hero's journey. It brings to the surface everything that needs healing in us. All of our unfinished childhood businesses come up. And in modern times, parenting can feel very isolating. It can feel counterintuitive and honestly, sometimes almost impossible. Now, what's interesting is that when you stop and really listen, it's rare to hear genuinely positive conversations about parenting. People, they will eventually say it's worth it or I love my kids more than anything, but not before listing everything that is exhausting, triggering, or hard. And my intentions here is not to deny these challenges, it's to highlight something deeper. Much of our struggle as parents does not actually come from our children. It comes from the beliefs and perceptions we hold about parenting itself and about children. I um Most of the time I have this habit that I often ask parents to pause and to notice what automatically comes to mind when they hear the words parenting, toddlers, children, or teenagers. And most parents, they're surprised by what comes up because it's often something negative, limiting, fear based, and that's not something random. We inherit more than our parents' physical traits. We inherit beliefs, emotional patterns, and the collective programming of our culture. And this is where PSYCH-K becomes so powerful and so efficient because PSYCH-K helps you to shift subconscious beliefs that shape your perceptions, emotions, and behavior, especially in stressful moments. And that really matters because the subconscious mind drives up to 95% of our responses, especially when we're triggered. So when you change the subconscious program, parenting doesn't feel like something that you have to work at so hard or try to control. It begins to change naturally for you. Now, when we use PSYCH-K with the parenting challenges, we literally transform how we see what it means to be a parent and how we see children. For example, instead of the idea like, the terrible twos, we begin to see toddlers for who they truly are: innocent beings going through a developmental phase where their will and autonomy are emerging. We stop seeing it as the terrible twos. And that inner shift, it moves you from battling to guiding and from frustration to patience, even when we're still setting boundaries. I remember discovering one of my own subconscious beliefs. I had this idea, I had this belief on my subconscious mind that a mother looks busy, rushed, in a bad mood, bossy. And after doing a psyche balance, that belief transformed into a mother is gentle, loving, compassionate, and patient. And that didn't just change the way I thought or the way I believe things, it changed how I showed up. There was another time that I noticed I was getting triggered by my toddler expressing autonomy. So I did a TPS, which is one of the psyche protocols we have, and I realized that I was subconsciously interpreting his behavior as a sign of disrespect. And then the truth surfaced. It wasn't about me at all. It never was about me. He was just simply experiencing the emergence of his will for the first time. And that realization alone shifted my emotional state immediately. From that moment on, I stopped seeing autonomy as defiance, and I started seeing it as the development of the self. Another big one for me was guilt around setting boundaries. Through a GPS, I realized the guilt was actually a fear that if I set boundaries, my son wouldn't like me anymore. So I did a balance. It's okay for me to set boundaries with my son. And then I did another balance. I set boundaries with my son in a healthy, loving, and gentle way. And something shifted inside of me, not because I tried harder or because I developed this other technique or I followed this tip, but because the belief underneath changed at my subconscious level. And what I have noticed both personally and with the parents that I work with is that this shift, these changes, they generalize when the subconscious program changes. It's like it affects many moments connected to the same pattern. And many parents, they often report more patient, more clarity, more emotional capacity, like more tolerance, and a deeper sense of connection with their children. And the biggest realization for me has been that even when a situation feels challenging, our reaction is not coming from the situation itself in the present moment. They come from our subconscious beliefs. In the first 7 years of life, especially the first 3 years of life, we all learned about love, safety, patience, and belonging. We absorbed these lessons not just from our parents, but from family, teachers, and the culture in general. So when our children express autonomy or counterwheel, we often fall back on the emotional patterns that we absorbed early on, many of which came from stressed, overwhelmed, or emotionally unavailable environments. And unlike traditional mindset work or behavioral strategies, PSYCH-K works at the level where these patterns actually live. That's why change feels immediate. It feels natural. It's lasting. It's not something you have to remember or to force or just to practice. And I want you to know that if this resonates with you, you can rewire subconscious beliefs in minutes. It takes literally from a few seconds to a few minutes, and you can install new expansive perceptions that transform not only how you parent, but how your child experiences you and life in general. And when the inner program changes, parenting becomes less about surviving and more about connection, growth, and joy. So if this feels aligned with you, I would love to support you on that journey.